All right guys, so on today's field tips, we're gonna be taking a look at how to set up an ultra lightweight tarp shelter 2 different ways for different weather conditions. All right guys, so the tarp we're gonna be using today is the DST from Seekoutside. This tarp is a little over 9 by 9. So it's a fairly sizable tarp, but it only weighs a little over a pound. And so it's light enough you can carry this thing in your day pack while you're out hunting, you know, just in case you get into some bad weather. It's nice to have a place where you can set this thing up and get out of the weather. So the first shelter configuration we're gonna set up is just a very, very simple and quick diamond fly. This is probably the most common way to set up a tarp shelter because of that, because it's quick, it's easy, and it's very effective, and there's a ton of room inside this thing. So on one of the corners, I've got a piece of paracord. I'm just gonna take this, run it up to a stub on this tree, give myself a couple of feet of space there, and then I'm just gonna tie, doesn't matter what kind of knot you tie, I'm gonna tie a tight line hitch, which I've shown how to tie in another video. I actually did another video with this same tarp showing how I use it as a hammock shelter. I think I covered this knot in there. But if you just Google tight line hitch, it's an adjustable knot. Works kind of like a prusik. All right, so now that I've got that done, I'm gonna come to the opposite corner. Come right down here, stretch it out, and stake this one down. So now we've got this thing stretched pretty tight. Again, find a corner. Make sure this edge is tight. Stake that one down, and do the same thing here. Just making sure that everything is tight. Now all you really need is 3 stakes, but I've got extras, and extra stakes never hurt. So I'm gonna go ahead and just throw in an extra right here in the center. Now you could leave it like this, but if you got any rain, that thing's gonna sag pretty bad. And so what it's best to do is take a stick, or a trekking pole works really well. If you're using a stick, take an old sock or t-shirt or something and just stick over the top of this thing so that if there's actually a reinforcing patch in the middle of this tarp, which you can put your stick up in, but if this thing slid off of that, if you were rolling around at night, slid off of that, and you didn't have your stick padded, you know, you could tear a hole in this tarp. So it's always best to be safe. So you can see how much space is in here. And this thing is great for just a minimalist shelter. You know, if the weather is fairly good, you know, it'll stand up to some rain and a little bit of wind, but you don't want to probably be staying in something like this if it's going to be foul weather. So that's it. I mean, I set this thing up in under 2 minutes probably. There's a ton of room in this thing. You could easily sleep 2 guys in here with a bunch of gear and have plenty of place, you know, to be cooking or, you know, doing whatever you needed to be doing. So the next shelter we're gonna look at is my favorite for when the weather turns south. This is gonna be a fully enclosed, very well protected shelter, and all you need for it is just a flat tarp like this. So the way that this tarp is made is it's got these ties all around the side. And so what we need to do is find one of the corners and come into the very next tie. This is gonna be the back of the tent. So whichever way the wind's blowing, this is the way you want this facing. So again, grab the corner, come in 1 tie, and we're gonna stake this to the ground. Come over, find the next, same thing on the opposite side. So here's the corner, here's the next tie. Stake this out, make sure this is tight. Doesn't have to be super tight, but fairly tight. Stake that down. Now we're gonna go to the front edge and do the same thing. Corner, next one back. Now the critical part about this is what we're trying to get is if we tuck in this corner here, we've got this loose corner, we're just gonna throw that up underneath there. This line that we created back here and this one needs to form about a 90-degree angle. Again, pull it tight, stake it down. Now we're gonna do the same thing over here. Find the corner, come one back, put that extra underneath there, and bring it in until we've got about a 90. And so if we form a 90 back here, the distance between that stake and that stake is gonna be approximately equal to the distance between this stake and that stake. All right, so this is the footprint of this tent. We've got probably 7 feet from here to there and approximately 5 feet wide. So it doesn't take a huge area to set this kind of tent up. All right, so now what we need to do is just stand our tent up. And to do that, I'm just gonna use a couple of sticks that I've cut. And I'm gonna take a little piece of paracord, I'm gonna tie these together up here at the top. So about 6 feet or so up. You could tie this off to a tree like we did with the diamond fly, but in the absence of a tree, a couple of sticks work out really good. All right, so now just to make this easy, I'm gonna take this middle loop here, just put right over there. So now we've got this thing pretty much stood up. Now we can take these and close the tent off. So I'm just gonna take a stake, stake this about right there in line with the other side. And now this one stakes right there, and that completely closes this tent off. So this tent would be perfectly fine like this, but if you get some heavy rain, it's probably gonna sag a little bit, especially here on the sides. And so what I like to do is take a stick and just prop up the center. Don't forget your sock. There's so much room in here. I mean, you could sleep 2 guys in here if you were real comfortable with your hunting buddy, but there's certainly plenty of room for 1 guy and a ton of gear in here. Even if you had 2 guys in this thing, you could put your gear up here in the front, maybe a little back here in the back, and still have plenty of room. I've always been a minimalist. I just don't like to carry a bunch of stuff with me. And when I can, I like for the stuff that I do carry with me to serve multiple functions. And I don't think that you can get any more versatile in a shelter than a tarp. Just the number of different situations where these things come in handy, the different ways that you can set them up. They're extremely, extremely useful, and they weigh nothing. All right, guys, well, there you go. There's 2 different configurations of the tarp for different weather conditions. We've had the diamond fly for light rain, heavy dew, sunshade, things like that. And then we've got the fully enclosed tarp tent like you see right here, that's gonna be useful for more inclement weather. Maybe you've got bugs or something like that, something that requires a little bit more protection from the elements. I can't tell you how many nights I've spent under a tarp. I do a lot of backcountry hunting out west where you're miles and miles from the nearest road, and I don't even own a backpacking tent. This is what I use all the time. Just because of the versatility of these things. I mean, you've got a very small taste right here of how these tents or how these tarps can be used. They're lightweight, they're relatively inexpensive, and they're versatile, and that's what I love about them.